Back with another top 10 video, and today it's going to be the top 10 albums of 1980. Most of them are obviously going to be metal. A couple of them, probably according to today's standards, are more on the hard rock side, but for back then, these all would have been considered metal. And hard to believe, but all of these albums are turning 40 this year, 40 years old. So all this stuff, really old, predating me by a lot. All this stuff came out a solid 15 or so years before I was born. But I'm going to give my take on what the best albums from that year were. Just my personal opinion. So yeah, here we go.
Foxy, do you have a light? You can light me up tonight. I'd like to see you burn me down. Why don't you let me light your fire?
Coming in at number 10 is going to be Ace of Spades by Motorhead, a really great trio from England. At this point, the band was Lemmy Kilmister on vocals and bass, Phil Taylor on drums, and Fast Eddie Clarke on guitar. All three of them are dead today, which is very unfortunate and sad. But they made a lot of really great music back in the day. This is a really iconic album. A lot of people would probably have it a little bit higher on the list, but personally, I don't love the early Motorhead stuff as much as a lot of people do. I like their later 80s, 90s, and like 2000s stuff a bit better, like overall, but this is a really solid album still. Probably the title track and Fire Fire are my favorites on it. Just a really good mix of like the punk influences with like hard rock blended together. Lemmy always said they were a rock and roll band, but I think a lot of people would consider them to be a metal band. Kind of like a speed metal band, honestly, in some of their stuff, but really good band, good album. Ace of Spades, number 10. Animal Magnetism by Scorpions is going to be in at number 9 here. These guys are super old. This was already their 7th album at this point in 1980, so a lot of albums before this. This one was actually the first to feature Matthias Jabs like as the only lead guitarist. The album prior to this, Love Drive, they still had Michael Schenker on the album on some songs doing lead, but this one is all Matthias. He's a really great player. Rudolf Schenker playing rhythm guitar, obviously, and the really great vocals of Klaus Meine. These guys are from Germany, if I didn't already say that, but awesome band. Probably the best band from Germany, and this album is really good. The title track is really great, and I'd probably say The Zoo. Just two really awesome songs are my favorites. This is another one that's kind of on the edge of hard rock and metal, but yeah, it's going to be in at number 9, Animal Magnetism by Scorpions. In at number 8 is going to be the self-titled debut album by Iron Maiden. Really good band, one of the most popular metal bands in the world, obviously. They are from England and part of the new wave of British heavy metal movement back in the day. This album featured Dennis Stratton on guitar alongside Dave Murray. This was the only album to feature Dennis. Clive Burr on drums. Paul Di'Anno on vocals. This is the first of 2 with him, and Steve Harris on bass, obviously. But my favorites on it are probably the title track and Transylvania. I know Transylvania is just an instrumental, but I think it's got good guitar harmonies, great solos and riffs. It's just a really awesome song to me. But, you know, this album actually probably would have been a little bit higher a couple years ago for me. It's dropped a little bit, but still really good nonetheless. Comes in at number 8 for me. The self-titled debut album by Iron Maiden. Taking the number 7 spot is going to be Wheels of Steel by Saxon. This band is really underappreciated in my opinion. They have a ton of really great albums. This one, number 7 for me of 1980, a really good one. Stand Up and Be Counted and Motorcycle Man are awesome. Machine Gun is another great one from this album, but Biff Byford on vocals does a good job. He's not really known as being like a great vocalist, but I think his music or his vocals fit the music really well here. This is just a new wave of British heavy metal bands, so they have that classic sound, really great stuff, and they have a lot of really good albums up through the 2000s you can listen to even. But this one, really good. Paul Quinn on guitar, great tone. A lot of great riffs and solos on this album. So number 7, Wheels of Steel by Saxon. Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne in at number 6. This was his debut solo album. It's really hard to keep this down at number 6, but I have to do it. Randy Rhoads, obviously, on lead guitar on his first 2 solo albums. One of the best metal guitarists of all time. Some really great songs on here. Suicide Solution, I Don't Know. Just lots of great stuff. Mr. Crowley, that's got one of the best solos of all time. Just a little bit inconsistent, I think, towards the end. Like, the songs are okay, the last couple, but not amazing. But yeah, overall, pretty solid album and really good debut considering how he got kicked out of Sabbath like the year before this and nobody knew what was going to happen with him. But yeah, really good album, number 6, Blizzard of Oz, Ozzy Osbourne.
I was listening to the music on the radio. I had a feeling that something's not right.
Strong Arm of the Law by Saxon in at number 5. Another really great album from them from 1980, their second appearance on the list. Very impressive to have 2 albums come out in the same year that are good enough to make a list like this. Both pretty similar in sound, obviously. Just I think this one's a bit more consistent. Got some better songs on it. Heavy Metal Thunder, 20,000 Feet, To Hell and Back Again, title track are all great. Just this track list is really good. You got a lot of good stuff here. And yeah, just it's really impressive that they had 2 really good albums come out in the same year. Strong Arm of the Law by Saxon, number 5.
My mother was a witch. She was burned alive. Sackless little bitch. For the tears I cried. Take her down now. I wanna see her face.
Lightning to the Nations by Diamond Head is in at number 4. Really great album. Brian Tatler on lead guitar. Very influential player. Dave Mustaine and a lot of other people have cited him as a big influence. Lots of great riffs on here. Really, really good track listing. Just looking at it here. Lots of good songs. Title track, Sucking My Love, Am I Evil are all really great. But everything, Helpless is also amazing. Everything on it is good. Consistent album. There's only 7 songs, but it's like 40 minutes long or so. And it's really close with this one and the previous album, Strong Arm of the Law. But I think the very good and unique vocals of Sean Harris put it a little bit above Saxon. Just really close though. This is a really good album, Lightning to the Nations by Diamond Head, number 4. Women and Children First by Van Halen, got it right here on CD, is in at number 3. This one is probably one where some people think it's hard rock, some think it's metal. It's right on the edge. Decided to include it. Eddie Van Halen on guitar is obviously one of the greatest of all time. And this album, it's between the debut and Women and Children First for me as my favorite. They're both amazing. But just looking at this track listing, the first 7 songs are all amazing. Like Take Your Whiskey Home is great. Fools, Romeo Delight, which Romeo Delight is probably one of their fastest and heaviest songs. Just Loss of Control is really fast and great as well. David Lee Roth, is a beast. One of the greatest frontmen of all time in rock, metal, whatever you want to call them. But awesome stuff. Van Halen, Women and Children First, number 3. taking the number 2 spot for me is going to be Scream Dream by Ted Nugent. Got it right here on vinyl. I'm a huge Ted Nugent fan, obviously. Got 2 more of his albums up on the wall. Got all of his classic era stuff on vinyl. Everything from the debut up through If You Can't Lick 'Em from 1988. But, you know, obviously by today's standards, this is probably more considered of a hard rock album. But for back when it was released, 1980, this was considered a metal album. And I'd say Hard as Nails is like the heaviest and probably the best song on here. But a lot of great stuff. Wango Tango is awesome, the title track. Freaking Flesh and Blood is a really great underrated song. But everything on here I like a lot. Really great raw guitar tone from Ted. Got a 70s feel to it still. So, you know, love this album. One of my favorites. And a little fact here, you have Charlie Hune playing rhythm guitar and doing lead vocals on a couple of the songs. Some of you may know him from being the frontman of the band Victory, which was formed by Herman Frank after he left Accept. So, yeah, that's a little fact for you there. We'll do a few honorable mentions before I get to number 1. Progressions of Power by Triumph, On Through the Night by Def Leppard, Angel Witch's first album are all pretty good. Obviously, I didn't mention Judas Priest, British Steel, just not a huge fan of that album. Not terrible, just don't love it as much as a lot of people do. I think it's a bit overrated. But a few more here, you know, AC/DC, Back in Black. Besides the title track and You Shook Me All Night Long, you know, it's got a lot of good stuff on it. Those 2 songs are kind of annoying at this point, though. And Beating the Odds by Molly Hatchet and Tomcattin' by Blackfoot. Southern hard rock, but very good albums, in my opinion. So, on to number 1. Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath is going to take the number 1 spot for me. And I feel like it would probably be at number 1 for most people. I just think it's a very respected and influential and great album from these guys. Obviously, Ozzy got kicked out of the band a year before this came out, and they hired a guy named Ronnie James Dio on vocals. And in my opinion, that was a massive upgrade from Ozzy. Just the overall sound and everything about the band got better, in my opinion. This is one of their best albums, without question, in the top 3, possibly the best. I'll try to rank them at some point. But just looking through this track listing, you got Neon Nights starting off the album, which is great. Children of the Sea, Lady Evil, the title track, Wishing Well. Their best song, in my opinion, Die Young. Walk Away and Lonely is the Word. So just a really stacked album. Lots of great stuff. One of the best albums of all time. Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath at number 1. So that does wrap up my top 10 albums of 1980. I think I'm going to try to do every single year from the 80s and maybe even more into the 90s, but I don't know when I'll be able to get that done. I'll try to do it as soon as possible. But as usual, you can let me know what you thought of the video. Give me your top 10 in the comments. And until next time, thank you for watching.